Morning, everybody. 8:10 a.m., May 4th. Welcome to my channel. So, of course, news happened that Iran hit a U.S. Navy vessel, but then I think the U.S. is denying that happened. Who knows? They're saying Iran's saying that they violated the warnings. They warned them. Excuse me. Crude is up 1.41%. It was almost up at $105 a barrel. Has since retreated. Now, this did take down the markets very violently. Right now, it looks more of like a liquidation break, which really strengthens markets at the end of the day. We'll have to see if this plays out. Okay. On Friday, there was a big disconnect in the markets. Tech was really the only thing that was pretty strong. The rest of the market was not. Hence, you kind of have that like inverse hammer candle in the SPY S&P 500. It closed lower than the open, which would be a red candle. So, like I said, this market's got a lot of momentum. It's getting pretty overbought, but markets can remain irrational long as you can stay solvent. All right, that's a very accurate saying because every time you say this can't go up, it does. It does. Okay. This week we have more earnings. Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Ended the week with a couple of longs that didn't work out. And what stunk about Friday was I was almost filled on one of my orders for a long, and it didn't quite get filled, and then news came out that pushed the market higher. I would have got hit my target. That kind of stinks. I think that happened the prior day as well. And then I tried to play the pullback, and that just didn't work out. Didn't work out. Well, not all trades are going to work out, right? So I had a slightly tiny red week of trading. I've been pretty consistent, but you're not going to be killing it all the time, right? You got to be realistic. All right. Now, I think we're ready to get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steve Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. That's how I come up with game plans. Now, once that market opens, I use the market internals. All right, that shows me what's driving the market, what's under the hood of the market off the open. Okay, throw in a little ICT smart money concepts in there. Anchor VWAPs, my trusted weekly expected move indicator I give away for free for Thinkorswim on my Discord. Also, the gamma flip points I give every morning for free as well. All right, all wrap that up in a little bow. I came up with my own little proprietary system that the way I like to trade. Okay, now, every morning I do this. And please subscribe, set that alert. I give you the market story, the market news, the economic calendar, a bunch of technical analysis, and I always give you the long and short trade scenarios in the NASDAQ and the ES futures. All right. Now, if you want to get more in-depth coverage from myself, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay, I will never steal you wrong. Let me be your indicator. Now, let's get right into futures watch list here. All right, we have a VIX that's up 5.30%. It's at a 17.89. Crude's up 1.56% at $103.50 a barrel. Ethereum up 1.40. 10-year yield is up 0.48. Generally follows crude. Bitcoin up 0.43. It was around 80K before. Dollar is up 0.22. NASDAQ is pretty much flat. ES is down slightly, down 0.12. 30-year bonds are being sold. Hence, yields are higher. Dow is down 0.35. Russell down 0.39. Gold down 1.5%. And silver down 3%. Okay. Max 7 Plus here. Coinbase. Getting some love here, up 3.25%. Amazon up 0.44. Berkshire Hathaway up 0.42. Reported earnings this morning. I believe Coinbase reports this week as well. Let's see some negative here. Microsoft down. Let's see. AMD reports earnings this week. They're down 0.40. Microsoft down 0.42. Apple down over 0.5%. Boeing down 0.72. Eli Lilly down 2.82%. Okay, Eli Lilly had a nice week last week after they reported earnings. All right, top sector stocks here. Oracle. Oracle almost up 3%. Palantir reports earnings today after the close. They are up 2.32%. Okay. McDonald's, well, they're just up 0.15. Let's see if any little laggards here. Costco down 0.23, United Healthcare down 0.27, Home Depot down 0.27, Qualcomm down 0.36, and the mining stock, NEM, down over 0.5%. Let's go a little granular list here. That's not my granular list. This is my granular list. eBay. Oops, sorry. eBay up 7.60%. JetBlue up 4.73%. Micron up almost 3%. Iris Energy reports earnings this week up 2.61%. MicroStrategy up 2.16%. AMC up 2%. And CoreWeave up 2%. All right, let's see if there's laggards this morning. There is Norwegian Cruise Lines down over 7%. GameStop down 2.86%. UPS down 2.85%. And FedEx down 2.46%. And silver, we already know about, down 2%. All right, moving on. Sectors. Technology. Technology now. 35% of the market cap weight in the S&P 500 is technology, which is just a monster. Okay. Semis still getting love this morning, up 0.298. Oh, I'm sorry, up 0.21. Energy was up more before, only up 0.10. Laggards today, real estate and healthcare down 0.46. Eli Lilly will take down the healthcare today. All right. We can move on. Economic calendar. We'll look at the week. Okay. Okay. Today, we got factory orders at 10 a.m. Tuesday, ISM Services, PMI, JOLTS jobs. Got some Fed speak, Fed Bowman. New home sales. Right. Wednesday, more Fed speak, some crude inventories. Thursday, initial jobless claims, more Fed speak. More Fed speak on Friday, but we have non-farm payrolls and unemployment and Michigan consumer sentiment, and then more Fed speak after the close. Last time, non-farm payrolls and unemployment were given out on a day the market was closed, so you really didn't have the market respond to that. Now, before we get on to that, let's go over the earnings for this week. What do we have for this week? A lot of large orders. Maybe some positive news came over the wire just now. Seeing some buying. Anyway, this morning, Norwegian Cruise Lines reported. Berkshire Hathaway. Okay. Palantir after the close today. Duolingo. Pinterest. Okay. Tuesday, before the open, Shopify, PayPal, Fiserv, Marathon. After the close on Tuesday, AMD. That's a big one. Supermicro Computers, Arista. All right, Arista Networks, AMC. Okay, Disney reports before they open on Wednesday. Novo Nordisk, Uber, CVS. Okay, after the close on Wednesday, IonQ, some quantum computing there. ARM, a semi. Dutch Bros, coffee. All right, Snap Inc., Beyond Meat. And Celsius later in the week. Datadog, McDonald's. Let's see here. What else? Rocket Labs reports after the close on Thursday. SoundHound, Mercado Libre, Affirm, Coinbase, CoreWeave, Iris Energy, Wendy's, AMC Networks. All right, that's this week in earnings. Okay, now we're going to look at Trump's schedule today. I don't see anything, but any minute he could say something. Let's see if there's a stock roundup. Now, this morning the news was, like I said, a Navy vessel was hit by Iran, which U.S. is denying. Let's see if there was some news. Let's see. don't see that here, but as tensions rose up in the Middle East, U.S. futures swung, crude oil rocketed higher, diverting attention away from the mega cap tech companies. All right, two missiles hit a U.S. warship near Jask Island after it ignored Iran's warnings. Okay, let's do a little more news here. Let's see, CEO Greg Abel moves to assure Berkshire Hathaway shareholders in a post-Buffett world with record cash. eBay shares struggle to track GameStop's ambitious bid price on investor skepticism. Spirit says most customers refunded after a abrupt shutdown. Spirit Airlines is shut down. Amazon opens up its logistics network to other businesses. U.S. restaurant sales drop as Iran war pushes gasoline prices higher. There's really not that much else in here. Okay. Trying to see here if there's a little extra here news. Otherwise, we're just going to move on. I don't think so. All right. I think we can go straight to internals. It's my bread and butter. Let's recap those internals. Alrighty. So, big divergence. Huge. Okay. So, the markets had some love off the open. Okay. Now, then it trended lower the rest of the day. Look at the internals. The only green was technology, which is 35% of the market cap weight. So that's how powerful tech is, because financials was down, communications was slightly down, consumer discretionary was flat, industrials was down, healthcare. I mean, this is why this white line, the equal weight, was just divergent from the market cap weight. Okay. If technology was weak, this market would have really sold off on Friday. But that's not how the market works. Okay. So, note that divergence, and look, we closed below the open. Okay. So, that's your little market internals recap. Now, let's get to some daily charts here. All right. Now, you can see SPY really was in this balance area for a long time. Broke out here, had some follow through, made a new all-time high, but like I said, has that inverse hammer candle, or I think it's something called the reverse morning star or something like that. But I just look at this inverse hammer. You just look at it like, ooh, that's a nice wick there, right? Where are we at now? 720.17. So 720.17 brings us right at the lows. Okay, so we did dip down from that news, since recovered. We're at the lows of Friday. Okay, you can see last week we made new weekly ranges, because that orange bars are the previous week's range. Okay, so new all-time highs, and now we'll look at futures. Futures always gives us more information, right? So in futures, you can see that wick, right? Right here. So we were down here. We came down into probably Thursday's midpoint, have since got bought up, which it's a Monday. We're going to try to process this information from the Middle East. Okay. You can see here on Friday, we kind of hit that psychological number, 7,300, and basically trend it lower for the rest of the day. Okay, so pretty much nothing to see here. It's a Monday, right? So let's go to the Qs. Qs are relatively stronger on Friday. Okay, made all-time highs, new weekly ranges. Where are we now? 674.80s. So what a contrast, right? Look at what did I just say? 674.80s, right? Unbelievable, right? So different You're at the highs of Friday. You're at the highs of Friday. And I just told you ES is at the lows. So we just have this divergence where the S&P 500 is just relatively weaker. Or you look at it, the Qs are relatively stronger, right? Technology just keeps getting money with semis in it, okay? So let's look at futures. Let's just look at that. You don't even have, well, let's move over. Let's move over here. All right, so this is what we did. That little pullback came all the way down to about maybe the midpoint of Friday. Okay, have since got bought up, and now you kind of got a doji candle, and you can see we broke last week's highs in futures. But it's pretty much, look at that, lower high, lower high, lower high. I mean, sorry, higher low, higher low, higher low. 4 sessions in a row. Actually 5. Maybe even 6. Oh, 7. Yeah. So tech just keeps getting a lot of money flows. Okay? It just can't be stopped. Okay? Until it does. So we'll see. Now let's look at breadth. This is the percentage of stocks over the 50-day moving average. It's at 55%. Now we did take a step back on Friday. Remember I said overall breadth was not the strongest. Okay, let's look at the RSP. That's your equal weight S&P 500. See, that was weak. We still have not made new all-time highs. So we pulled back. What does this mean? I don't know, right? I don't really know, but all I know is that the market overall was pulling back. Tech was strong. All right. Now we're going to look at the hourly charts. And of course, it's kind of a mess. It really is kind of a mess. Let's get into those hourly charts here. That's not the hourly charts. Here we are. Alrighty. Let me get my little marker out. Alrighty. Alright, so this is what we did on Friday, right? You pushed up 7,300 psychological level and just started to make lower highs, right? And then you went all the way to Sunday night open, dropped down, right? I'm sorry. This was Friday. And then you opened up on Sunday here, kind of went sideways, and then boom, that news came out that said that the Iran struck a U.S. Navy vessel. But this is usually, like when you see that, it's more of a liquidation break, which strengthens the market. Because if this was strong selling, we'd be down here. Okay, that looks like profit taking from shorts. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now you are building up a nice defense here for bears. A lot of trading here. Okay, you got multiple supply zones, and then we're trying to push back into here. Okay, you can see this is the daily bar for futures. This is the 4 hour, the last 4 hours, right? You got kind of a bullish 4 hour. Doesn't matter that it's red. You got a big wick here. Okay, so really your area of interest here is going to be from the 72.60s to about the, let's see here, 72.74s. So any attempt to go higher into this supply, if you get met with selling, you now have poor structure to clean up down here. Poor structure from the past, and this wick really won't be much support. Okay, but I don't know. I don't know how things. You don't know how things are going to shake out off the open, right? You just don't know. But see, the market's very efficient, so it always moves the same way, even with news. Just notice this, okay? Look at this rip up, right? and then you push up, and then you range, right? But look at this move, very violent, right? Why could that be violent? Well, the structure here was not very good, and it symmetrically took back the poor structure over here, but now we're back up, right? So as long as you don't consolidate like this, the market can move freely. Okay, there's not going to be a lot of stops in here. There shouldn't be much support there. If it is support, it's bullish. Okay, let's just see how this pans out. Crude is up. Is this just another opportunity to buy the dip? We don't know. Okay, the market's a wild beast. All right, let's move on to that NASDAQ. Remember, NASDAQ is relatively stronger. Okay, let's look at the NASDAQ. Now, NASDAQ also had poor structure right here. Okay, and what did it do? Cleaned it up. Major demand here. This is last month's highs right there. That's where it pulled back to and got bought up. Now you have a couple supply up here. So notice what I said, right? Impulsive move up, and then you ranged and caused a lot of volume up here, right? And then what happened? That news came out and you took the impulsive move back and cleared it up. That's when the market's efficient. Okay? And then what do? You come back into the highly crowded area and the market slows down. So this is the most traded price of 27870 of Friday. So you look at that like a little line in the sand. And look, you're getting a little selling from the supply. And like I said, this could, if tech is weak off the open, come down all the way down here, test last month's highs, which is around 27673s. Okay? Because this would be right now a harder move to the upside here with this overhead supply. The move down would be easier. And it all depends on what's driving the markets when the markets open. Okay, now ultimate balance down here, 274, is still the major line in the sand for the macro picture. Okay, that's your hourlies. Mondays are never, sometimes they're good, a lot of times they're just got to digest what's happening in the markets over the weekend. Okay, we're going to move on to market profile, line profile. And let's look at that. Okay, like I said, tail two markets right now. So this is your market profile and your volume profile. I know it looks nuts if you're new watching my stream. You're used to looking at candlesticks, but I really like using this because it separates. Okay, the darker areas are the regular trading hours, which would be from 9:30 to 4:15. The lighter shaded areas is your overnight activity, and it breaks it out into different sessions, right? This is what I like about it. I can see overnight activity differ from the regular time trading hours. Okay, so all it is, this market profile is 30-minute bars. This is just 30-minute bars, but when you collapse it, it makes a profile. That's all it is. There's nothing else to it. And then I just have a volume profile next to it. Okay, so you can see very clearly here. Look at where the market is right there, and that is Friday's lows. But look though, you have a bunch of selling excess or buying excess here. So the market came down and ripped back up. Remember I said liquidation breaks like this strengthen the markets generally because it removes sellers. Okay, it removes sellers. So it's a very, very, very small gap down. Okay, the market closed at the lows on Friday. That's generally not the most bullish sign. Okay. But this makes it, like I said, this buying, and you're at the 50% retracement as well as the overnight session. It just makes it a weird area to do business. 50% retracement at the overnight. You're at Friday's lows, Friday's close. It makes it harder to find a direction there. It's just not the best area to trade. Okay. So we're gonna get into the long and short trade scenarios in an ES now. Okay. Let's do that. And then while that graphic's up there, I'm gonna break out the session. Okay. So we're gonna look at the price action in the overnight. And remember, this is Friday's range. Right. Very balanced profile. Okay. And what we're gonna do here is map out some scenarios. Now remember, we have overhead supply here, and we are trending down a little bit in the near term. Okay, so what I would say, and what I said earlier, is we're going to start with shorts because shorts have an easier time here. Okay, remember I said this little thin volume, if you get some selling, some weakness, can really take this out. Okay, now, so what am I going to look for? Okay, we're at a very tiny gap. It's barely a gap. Okay, so what I could see happening is a push up into this supply, which starts around 72.60s. Okay, so any resistance in this area, even if you have to go up and tap the 72.74 the most traded price of Friday, and you just want to look for a nice rejection there. And if you get a lower high here, I would short that. Okay, and I would probably look to target the overnight lows. 72.13s happens to be a demand zone. Okay, that would be a very nice trade. Okay, so honestly, that's probably in that supply area. Like I said, from 72.60 to 72.74s, look for some resistance to short into. Okay, that's what I'm looking at for a short. I don't really have a lot that I'm interested in, to be honest with you, other than that. Now, longs, I'm not loving a long here. Okay. Now, what would I consider as a long, but that I don't love it, but it could happen. Okay, is if you drove and worked off all that supply, and let's say you broke out, hit the overnight highs. Okay, you find acceptance above the 72.74s, and then you retest 72.74s, then you're going to target the 7300s all-time highs. Okay. The only other thing that I would consider, and again, not in love with it, would be if we did just drive down lower and found support in this thin volume. Okay, that would be bullish. All right, so in between the 72.30s and the 72.20s, if you found support, that's possibly to go long. Targets 72.74. Now, I would I would prefer a very quick, swift move into this demand that starts around 72.13. Okay. This would be coming back into the balance area. Now, this would need to be quick. If it came in here and you popped out, you gave a lower high, okay, a higher low, I'm sorry. That's a long. And I would maybe just target the gap fill. Or Friday's lows. 72.52s. All right, that's your ES. Now, NASDAQ, remember, it's relatively stronger. It's really like a different market. It really is. Okay? It really, really is. Price right now is at the most traded price of Friday. Like I said, that's that 27870s. Okay, so it's really different. It's a stark contrast to the ES. Now, when you have the stark contrast, it makes it harder to trade it because I prefer the ES and the Nasdaq to be in sync with each other. It just makes trading easier. The only thing you can do in this case is if the Nasdaq stays strong and the ES is kind of relatively weaker, then you just, if you want to go long, trade the Nasdaq. If you want to go short, trade the ES. That's one way to play it. Okay. So again, all-time highs are in their overnight session in the Nasdaq. That's 279.66. Generally, overnight highs are not secure for all-time highs, and we usually make regular trading hours highs, the all-time highs, and then maybe that's the blow off top. Okay. So let's get into it. All right, let's do the Nasdaq long and short trade scenarios. Let's break out the session here. Now, ultimate balance is still 274. Okay. That might move up today to this 27870s. Who knows? But that's bullish if it does. But it's not, it hasn't done it yet. Okay? Hasn't done it yet. All right. So, how are we going to play this? Now, obviously, this looks more bullish than the ES. Now, you still have overhead supply here. So, we're going to play it a little different. We're going to play it a little different. Okay? So, I'm going to, in the NASDAQ, I'm going to start off with the longs. Okay? But what I need to happen, okay, this overhead supply needs to be taken out. So let's just say the market rips up through these overhead supplies, makes new all-time highs. What I want to see then is acceptance. Acceptance. A half-hour close, an hourly close above here. Moving kind of sideways. Okay? Then you can go long on a pullback. Okay? Let's say that pullback would be 27966s. The purple one. All right, so like I said, if you built volume up here, a pullback, like I said at the time, I don't know if it's going to be the VWAP or it could be the 27966s, the overnight highs. I don't know. Maybe even the 27917s, which is last week's highs. Then that goes off into Never Never Land and makes new all-time highs. Okay. This won't be easy to get through unless it's on hot, big volume off the open. Okay. Now, if the market sells off right away, very quickly, okay, into this demand, which starts around 27673s, okay, if there's some support and you take out that overnight low, and maybe you hit the 27615s, Friday's lows, support, higher low, you get long. And I would say be safe to target that most traded price of Friday, the 27870s. Now, if we do pull back quickly as well, and you come and you find support around, let's say, the 277s, that's in the thin volume. It doesn't make it down to the overnight lows. That's also bullish. You get the higher low. You're going to target the 27870s and see if you could power up to all-time highs, 27966s. Okay? Now, as far as a short, you do have a short here. It's just I would like to see the NASDAQ relatively weaker, right? I would like to see technology weak, semis weak off the open. That will give me the extra edge that I need to feel confident in shorting. So what would I like to see? Well, push up, right? And any kind of resistance in this supply, maybe at last week's highs, 27917s. And what I would like to see is a push, retest the most traded price of Friday to 27870s. You short there, target overnight lows, 27651s, then 27615s, Friday's lows. Then you have a big demand here. I don't know if you really take that out. Okay. If the market really gives up the goods, you could expect to go down to the 274s ultimate balance in the NASDAQ. Okay. One other scenario, okay, is the market drives up, boom, makes new all-time highs, takes out the overnight highs of 27966s. But let's say it sweeps it, closes back inside the overnight range, you get a lower high, you short that, right? And then you target again. Overnight lows 27651s, Friday's lows 27615s. And if you want to hold the runner, be my guest. This is major demand, so I would be careful here, okay? And then maybe go for those 274s. All right? That is my scenarios for today. Now, my overall market analysis for today, okay, is obviously the number one thing is NASDAQ is relatively stronger. Technology, specifically the XLK, that ETF, the sector, is 35% of the market cap weight in the S&P 500. And the SPY, okay, moves by market cap weight. So if tech gets money flowing into it, the market is going to generally go higher, even if the rest of the market is not very strong. Now, it won't be the biggest move in the S&P 500, but it will have a hard time coming down. However, today, if off the open, people start taking money out of tech, out of semis, okay, and the rest of the market is also weaker, then you're going to get a bigger move to the downside. Now, just like I said before, if tech is relatively weak, but the rest of the market is like so-so, the market can still move lower because that's the weight of technology. Okay. Now, the other thing we have to deal with is that U.S. Navy vessel that was hit by missiles by Iran. We still haven't, I don't know if we've got confirmed that it actually happened, but it doesn't matter. The market reacted to it, and you had a liquidation break. That's news coming out of nowhere and a violent move down, and then it's immediately bought up. All right, that generally strengthens the market because it removes sellers. So we also have that. Now, all that being said, it's a Monday. That makes the market even more difficult. Okay? It's Monday. We have to process that news. There was a liquidation break. The Nasdaq's getting money flows into it. Okay? Very hard to market go down with technology getting money flows. Now, on the charts, the ES looks like the short could be there. But like I said, with all that conflicting stuff I just said, it makes it hard to really get a good read until the market opens. And of course, there could be news coming out. All right, so I would say be patient, let the story unfold today. If you don't have a trade, then there's nothing there. All right. All right. That is my analysis for today. Please smash that like button if you enjoyed that analysis. That would mean a lot to me and my channel. Now, every morning I do this. So hope you subscribe, set that alert. Give you the market news, the economic calendar, the leaders and the laggards, technical analysis, and I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios of the NASDAQ and the ES futures. Okay? Now, if you want more in-depth coverage, you are going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay? Now, real quickly about my Discord. All right? So every Monday morning, my little AI agent runs my script and gives you the weekly expected move for free on my Discord. So you go to my Discord, you join, go to the weekly expected move. Here's the script. You can plug it in your Thinkorswim. Okay? And a little background on the expected move. It gives you the range for the week that the options market prices in. Now, this range Generally 70% of the time the market will close inside that range. That's a pretty big edge. All right, and I give you the major indexes, I give you major stocks. So when you open that up and put it on your charts, okay, look at those green band to the upside, red band to the downside. Look at them, and whenever one of them is tagged, I would say at first you say, okay, this is what the options market priced in. This move is probably done to the downside or to the upside. Now, there is outliers. When the market goes way above one of those levels, that stock or that ticker can go very far past it. But generally, if it malases to it and hangs around, it doesn't have much more room. So this is a big edge in itself, because if you're ever trading options or you're trading stock and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this has just hit its expected move, why would you go long? You wouldn't. Or down to the downside, why would you short it when it already hit its expected move to the downside? It's generally a bad idea. Okay, so that's the weekly expected move. You get my gamma flip points. Okay, these are big levels on the SPY, QQQ, and SPX. These are like pivot levels. You'll put them on your chart. Okay, they matter. The options markets matter. Hence gamma levels. Hence the weekly expected move. It's the tail wagging the dog. The options market. Okay, it drives price. It drives price. Okay, and then every morning after this is done, you get my pre-market scenarios. Okay, my little AI agent takes it from my stream, wraps it up in a pretty bow, and you can see here my weekly, my pre-market scenarios. Okay, now once the market opens, I do what's called my daily receipt, and I'm giving you what I'm seeing from the markets, what I'm looking at. All right, timestamps of what I did, and if I took trades before this time. Usually, a lot of times I don't take trades before this time, but I give you my overall read in the market, and it's time stamped. Okay, and at the end of the day, it sums it up in a little bow. Did my scenarios hit? Did they not hit? Okay, and then after the week, okay, you can see how many of my scenarios played out. What was my return each week? Okay, so that's a little bit of my Discord. I'm going to be adding more stuff to it, but just want to let you know my stuff is tracked. Like if you join me live, I usually go live every day around 9:45, 9:50. Come ask me questions. I'm not going to lead you wrong. I'm not going to overact to price action. Okay? When you first start, you overreact to price action. Then you realize, okay, let me settle in. You become more of a veteran at looking at price, and you don't react as much, right? I don't look at a big red or a big green candle thinking I missed out. I don't really look at that anymore. Only time that might happen is if I was going to get into a trade there and I didn't do it, and now it's moving. That will cause me to be like, oh God, I wanted to get in there. But not if it just moves randomly. Like it doesn't. That's not a setup, right? All right. So that's it for me today, folks. Now remember, no trade is a trade. Sitting on your hands is a trade. That is a position, right? Mondays, you got to let them settle in a little bit. Obviously, we open up a big volume, but where we're at right now is not a great place. Let it shake out, let it play out, and then apply your edge or your process. Okay? You have to have an edge in this game. If you don't have an edge, okay, and obviously edge means that there's something you see in the market that happens more times than it doesn't in probabilities, and then you have criteria. Okay? So try to follow that criteria, and we all do it. We make mistakes, we go outside of it, and that's when you probably get a couple losses and you're like, man, why did I do that? That was stupid, right? Because you're just human, but you just want to minimize those. All right. Now, as always, I should be going live around 9:45 a.m. Come join me on my Discord. If I don't see you there, I will see you tomorrow morning. Everybody have a great day.